It is August 2nd, 2025, and we're still here in the boatyard. Melissa took off to go spend some time with her family. Mom and dad, aunt, and our son up in Michigan. She's going to be gone for about 10 days, and I decided to stay here and get a bunch of stuff done.
I'm Melissa, and this is Ted. We bought a sailboat in the fall of 2024, and in real time, we're nearing the end of a huge refit. We're so glad you're here to catch up on the journey that brought us to this point.
Today is Saturday, and there's some big event that's happening here in Newburyport, but I'm not gonna go down there. I've got just way too much stuff going on with the boat, and so I'll be tied up with that. Monday morning, the crane is coming in from the rigger. They're pulling the mast, or they're unstepping the mast is what they call it. The mast does sit on top of the deck, so it's considered a deck step mast. They're taking the mast off with all the standing rigging, which is the cables that support it vertically, and all the running rigging, which are all the lines, the connecting points for the sails. As soon as they lay that down on some stands on the ground next to the boat, the crane is going to turn back around, and the mechanic and I are going to have the engine all like connected and strapped up to a lifting strap, and then we're going to hook onto that and slide the engine out of the engine compartment and up through the companionway, which is right there. Pretty big, but in the way is all this Dodger system, and so I'm going to have to this weekend disassemble all of that, get all the tubing, if you can see right there, all the tubing in this area here, and we're going to remove all of the bimini. You can see the bimini here, and the piece between the bimini and the Dodger. So lots of work to do today.
How many projects do you think Ted can finish while I'm in Michigan?
These are the 4 bonding cables that you can see actually run to the mast. They're completely burnt. The connectors, after that, all the tin got burnt off of it, and you can see the cables, they're fried. There's a burnt spot down in there where they were cooking. But this tells you where I'm at, because everything gets bonded, and lightning just wants to backtrack wherever it wants to go, and that's why we lost so many things electrical. So yep, see, mast. The engine's a total disaster. I'm so disappointed in the engine. And you could not see any of this stuff because of the way the engine sits so low down into the engine compartment. And the top of it looks fine. The previous owner had a raw water pump on that and the generator go out, and he just kept running it for probably a year or so. spraying salt water all over the bottom of both of the engines. The motor was supposed to have 1,100 hours, and so for a diesel engine of that size, that's not really a lot. And I hear later it had many thousands of hours after that by people that knew them and sailed with them. So the whole bottom, the engine got rusted really bad. So we're going to have to replace countless parts underneath of it.
Yep, smash them. And then
Good morning. I'm out here at the park at the end of the Merrimack River that dumps into the Atlantic. I come out here early in the morning just to sit and gather my thoughts and decompress. Sometimes I bring a fishing rod like I just did. See it right in there. I'm sitting here looking for stripers, and all of a sudden I'm seeing stripers coming in. That's actually what I'm waiting for, but they're too far away. It's a very low tide, so unless they come right up to us, right up to me, I'm gonna sit and watch them. It's kind of been a little bit of a rough go. Melissa's in Michigan visiting her aunt, and her parents were there, and her son, we flew her son up to spend some time with them, and so she could see friends and people up there that she knew back years ago when she used to live there. It's been a little bit of a rough, bumpy road for the last few days. First of all, I don't have the love of my life with me. It's kind of tough operating without, you know, the person that you love, but I know she's safe and having a good time. I didn't realize how much I really depend on her as much as when she's away. Very, very few times in our time together she's ever been away. And so I'm slacking on some of the stuff that I take for granted, and she just does. You know, sad, but it is a point where I can just stay focused on the things that I gotta do. But it is hard because you're going from one thing to the next and you're slogging through it, and it's like any project. When you start working on it, you get this curve thing that comes down like that, where the bottom of the curve, you know, it's kind of easy, and you're doing your research, and then you start doing the work, and it's kind of a long uphill battle. It gets harder and harder as you get to the center of it, and you're just trotting through it, and you almost get to the point where you kind of want to quit, or just walk away from it, but you keep pushing, and then you'll get to the top of it, and then you'll see light at the end of the tunnel, and then it'll just start going down like a downhill slope, and it becomes easier as you're finishing it. But there's still so much work with each project. I've got so many projects, and the bad thing is you had people that you were counting on, and you're gearing everything around that, and then they delay, so you have to push everything else out because certain steps have to happen before the next step happens. I'm cutting it off right here. The stripers are getting too close, so give me a second and I'll be back. Here's what I'm looking at. Just waiting for them to get a little closer to me. I just got a small spinning rod and a lure, just waiting for them to come. Almost there. So yeah, this boat for sure, it was a dream to think about getting something like this, and then we get the boat. Of course, you know, we found out all these things are wrong with it, and this is the mistake that Melissa and I made, is we got so caught up in the emotions of the boat, so we allowed our emotions and excitement about this boat to like surpass our ability to take a deep dive in and really see what's going on before we bought the boat. Unfortunately, we're deep into it, and at this point we just have to muscle up and just get through this. I am at this point where I can allow myself to get overwhelmed by so many things that have to be done, and the time period of getting them done is closing in and around me because winter is going to be coming around the corner. I've got till probably the end of September. I'm having to make these decisions of, okay, what are the things that we have to do before we drop this thing in the water? The object is to make the boat safe and make it where we can sail. Everything from the waterline down, I want to make sure that it is bulletproof. I'm going to talk a little bit about the bow thruster. We have a max power bow thruster. It was a little tricky getting the props off. It had they had dual 3-bladed props, one on each side of the bow thruster, and then I cleaned them up. Every one of these bow thrusters has its own little way of getting the props off. In this case, there was an Allen key. I think it was a metric size 3 that was on the side of the hub of the prop. As far as the rest of the bow thruster, it is up underneath of the forward berth. So here's the lower unit that sticks down into the tunnel section. It's kind of made out of a really hard, like a Delron plastic. I think it's somewhat similar to the props, kind of a black plastic, and it has a seal that it goes into, and it's all self-contained. It had bottom paint on it, and what I ended up doing is, because I have a little die grinder with these paint stripper pads, and I just could not really effectively get it in there. And so what I did is I went and grabbed some of these green Brillo pads. These are the coarse ones, and just put some Dawn dishwashing soap on it, and I had a little scraper in case there was something I couldn't quite get off. But basically what I did is I just went all the way around in here in this lower unit here and stripped. It was really good and effective to strip the bottom paint, but they don't recommend sanding it or using a wire wheel or something like that, because it is technically plastic and you'll score it. And there's the spindle that the prop sits on, and that cleaned right up with the green Brillo pad.
De Zwaan is the only authentic working Dutch windmill in the United States. It was originally built in 1761 in the Netherlands and arrived in Holland, Michigan in 1964. The 125-foot tall mill grinds local Michigan winter wheat, corn, and rye into flour, which is sold on site.
Here is these frames, and these frames, they go, here's another frame, they go as trim pieces in these holes, and this is where the enclosed Fischer Panda 12,000 watt generator, and then here is the situation going on with the Yanmar. And then here is the side access, and those frames went around that and they took up some space, and I removed all that to give us a little bit more access to things, because we're going to be removing things, and this little wall we're going to take out, because hopefully tomorrow we're going to have the crane here to pull this engine, and this piece here, right here, that will come out, and it'll allow a little bit more lifting height so that we can then rotate the engine straight up. That will come out of the companionway. The stairs that go up through the companionway will come out. They have 4 pins with little cotter pins, and those just pull out, and this whole thing comes out, so it won't be in the way. Here you can see this is the Fischer Panda, and this is the high voltage power panel, and unfortunately there was oil that was in there, and I had to take these boards out and clean up underneath it there. How it got in there, I don't know. I think there was the oil pump was spewing oil inside of there, and it allowed oil to seep through that access where these cables go through into the generator. This is like raw oil, engine oil, and just the wrong short in here would cause this oil with 220 volts to catch on fire, and this could have been an absolute total disaster. Of course, this is the motor mounts. The raw water pump was just going on like nobody's business. This is the underside of the propane locker, and you're basically seeing the raw fiberglass, and it had a little bit of gel coat painted on it. I sanded most of it off, but I've been doing some repairs because it was cracked in different places. Here it has a lip that goes actually down in reverse, and there is where a through hull goes to a tubing that goes out the back end through another through hull at the back end of the boat. And then what I'm going to end up doing is like white epoxy in the outside to kind of give it a finished look, and it will strengthen it up. And then I'm going to do the inside with it, and what that'll do is that will pretty much make it bulletproof. Well, I guess I didn't explain why I fiberglassed that hole up on the bottom of the propane locker. And the reason is it had a big fitting, and the fitting is where the propane hose came up through the bottom of the propane locker, and there it would connect into the regulator. The problem is the fitting wouldn't clamp down around the hose effectively, and so if any rain would have come in and there was a seal that was dried out, and I'm going to replace that seal, but as water gets in there, even though it has the design of a through hull, like taking whatever residual water may be in the bottom of that and sending it out, it leaks still through that little fitting where the propane is. And so I'm fiberglassing that over, and then I'm going to bring the propane line up the side of the propane locker, and then I'm going to put like a 90-degree angle fitting in there.
Good morning, little bunny. What you doing?
This is that material, that epoxy material, and I had sanded it, scuffed everything up, but it came out really well. What we're doing now is we're going to be tightening these keel bolts, and I've got to remove this piece. The manufacturer put them in there specifically in case those bolts over there have to be tightened, and that allows your extension to go straight to those. And what I did is I ordered this custom socket. Basically what they do is they take a very solid impact socket, and this one happens to be 1.5 inches right here. They put like a 8-inch extension of a pipe, actually maybe 7. The total space in there is about 7 inches, and if you look way down here in the keel bolts, the threaded rods stick way up. You've got somewhere at least about 4 and maybe as much as 5 inches of threaded rod above that, above those keel bolts. The only way to get to them is with something like this. The other situation is we have from this edge all the way down to the bolts, it's kind of deceiving, but that's about 5 feet. You have to have enough extensions, but I found 2 of these shorter extensions. All of these are 16-inch extensions. So these 2 here, I actually found on eBay, and I made an offer and they accepted it. So I actually bought these for pretty reasonable price, these 2. So then I looked at Lowe's, and they had a couple of these Tectons. Here's the breaker bar. This one is a ratchet, but the ratchet allows me to play around with a short amount of room that I'm working with here. You can extend this guy all the way out. So the whole premise of what we're going to be doing is we're going to put a certain amount of torque on it. And I actually was looking for a torque wrench, and then I got the idea of using an adapter, and of course Quinn at Harbor Freight, they happen to have these for 3/4 inch, and they're like $59 a piece. And I've seen reviews of people who tested them, and they're down very, very, very tight tolerances. It doesn't have to be totally exact, but This thing does put it on the money. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tightening these bolts down to 325 foot-pounds of torque. And again, this is something that the manufacturer had recommended. Anytime you're going to go and do a full re-rig, and then we're going to add a locking nut. And these are the 316 grade stainless. And it's good to have a locking nut like that instead of having one, because I'll be honest with you, 316 grade is great for corrosion, but the higher the corrosion resistance of the material, the less strength it is. We'll be going ahead and tighten those down to 325 foot-pounds of torque, and then we'll be tightening this down on top of those at 325 foot-pounds of torque. So it looks like I'm close. I got to 290 foot-pounds of torque. It looks like you need like several people to hold this, but you can see my torque is already set. Here it's set max to 325, and I'm going to try to put some juice on it. And I'm using those two straps down here going out. That's up against the table, and this may give me what I'm looking for. With two hands free, and I'm okay. Well, that was 325. Now I got to give it a little bit and do a readjustment. Okay. Again, it's straight up and down. We're going to try this again. I've readjusted the strap. Now we're putting these locking nuts. These are the locking nuts that are going to go on. These are 316 stainless. I am going to the shaft that will be inside of these locking nuts. I want to just dab a little bit of some corrosion resistant stuff. I've been using this stuff for years. I got it from a trailer company down in Florida that makes boat trailers, and they also supply boat trailer parts. But it's called Q-Max Salt, ironically, and it's basically what it is. It's a rust and salt inhibitor, and it actually provides a little bit of a coating on it. I'm gonna spray some in a cup, and just putting some in a cup. And the best way I found to use this is just use a small little cheap $1 brush you could get at Walmart, and I'm just going to brush this on just above the other nut that I put on the shaft. I wire brushed with a stainless steel brush all the shafts, the threads, and just spinning them down. it just is very thick, and it adds a lot of strength to the item, and it's not a beautiful smooth finish. It's so thick. I'm just going to lay it in and just kind of let it spread out. I'm going to go ahead and spread some of this out. There's a compartment that's going to get a lot of banging around, and it is it's where the propane bottles are going to go into. So this thing is going to get, like, you're going to be clinking aluminum propane bottles in there, and it's going to get scuffed and all that. So we want a really hard finish on it. And so, but anyways, here we're going to start rolling the bottom, and it's kind of interesting because it looks like I'm just moving it around, and this stuff is so thick. And so what I'm going to do now is start pulling this up along the sides. See, I've got a nice big thick coat down in there, and it's a very, very low viscosity, which means it's not going to run. And this doesn't look very professional, but I'm just going to kind of let this kind of get gooey along the sides. This is this piece from yesterday. What I'm trying to do this morning is I'm taking the tape off and you know, getting things prepped. Now I'm just trimming up the edges with the die grinder. Make sure you wear a mask and respirator when using power tools like this or doing epoxies. Here's some of the hoses and supplies for the blasters. I thought it was soda blasting, but actually they use a very, very, very fine sand. It's very fine. Right now they're putting the plastic down. That's going to be on the bottom. And they've taped up the sides. That white strip below the bootstrap is taped. Good group of guys. They got the shaft all wrapped up. They're keeping the cutlass bearing. They're actually encapsulating the whole entire bottom to keep any of this stuff out from the environment. Although the media that they use is environmentally friendly, because it's basically milled stone that looks just like sand, it's only finer. This is their large compressor that uses this compressed air. Very reputable. We were referred to these guys by 3 different blasters. They all said they were busy, but this guy is really good if you can get him. They're still building up the encapsulation. This is a fan that they use. The fan is a vent fan and it sucks out the volume of air. It doesn't suck out the debris. It's just they're going to be blowing a lot of air in here. Completely encapsulating the bottom of the boat. It's going to contain all the dust and particles, and then they'll clean it all up. Okay, they got the fan rolling. Here's the bubble. It's where they catch all the dust. Suited up. Here's the bubble that they make, and the guys actually go in there. And this is the dust collector. There's a big blower that blows all the dust particles in there. Peter says there's about roughly 200 pounds of dust that they collect in here after the job is over. The setup of this job takes about 3 to 4 people to get it all together. They've spent like a day and a half getting everything prepared, and then it'll take probably about a half a day to break it all down. So that's part of the cost. It's almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They've been at it really hard. You can actually see this blue dust clinging to the plastic. It's turning it all blue. That's from the blue bottom paint, of course. Looks like he's about maybe 80% done. There's the completed bottom. Said everything. The blaster said everything looks really good in the gel coat. What you're seeing there is part of the epoxy barrier, the original epoxy barrier coat. There were several layers, and the blaster couldn't get it all done. It would really be too much damage to the gel coat. So what I'm going to have to do is sand and fair that out. But it's going to be way better than trying to get all that years and years and years worth of layers of bottom paint. It's a rainy day today, and Melissa is going to be flying in tomorrow from seeing family in Michigan. The riggers are coming tomorrow. We're pulling the engine, and then they're taking all the rigging off and then taking that rigging back to their shop so they can make new rigging. And so today is a rain day, and I'm putting away the rest of the project stuff I had laid all out while Melissa was gone. And so this is a little bit of a housekeeping day. Thanks for following along, and we appreciate your patience, and we'll see you in the next video. See ya.